Continuing the theme of clones of Doom, we move on now to a clone of Duke Nukem. Duke Nukem 3D to be more exact. I think I may have covered the old Duke Nukem 3D on this channel before. Possibly, if not, then I sort of missed my opportunity to do it this month, since I made this month's theme be that of games that followed in the close footsteps of Doom to the point where they were called clones of it. But then again, Duke Nukem pretty much has a generic theme, if you will. It's an alien invasion. It's not really what you would call like the greatest setup for a game. The character is funny and really enjoyable. The game itself is superb, but when it comes to theme, Duke Nukem 3D really is a bit outshined by Shadow Warrior. Because you're not fighting some aliens with some Hollywood style action hero. No. You're fighting demon ninjas from hell as the Shadow Warrior himself, Lo Wang. They say that no man is an island except for Lo Wang, and that pain is for the weak, and whatever else you find in those fortune cookies that are scattered all over the maps. Now, the game may seem at that, but by today's standards, it's built to be as cliche as humanly possible. Some people might take offense to that, that's okay. I don't believe the game means any harm unless you're a demon ninja from hell that's working for Zilla Enterprises. As Lo Wang, the former bodyguard of Zilla, you must now hunt down and defeat Master Zilla himself, where he plans to take over the world, and worst of all, he even killed your own master. You must seek revenge. And there's some anime girls that at one point a reference to Lara Croft shows up. The game sort of seems like it would have been made today in terms of inserting anime girls in strange places. Anime wasn't huge when this game was made, at least in my neck of the woods. We were barely getting Dragon Ball, the first one. Oh no, actually no, we were getting anime in years prior, stuff like Heidi. There was the one with the racing, I forgot what it was called. We did have Voltron, of course, and this was 97. I think we're also getting Gatchaman. But when it started development, anime culture wasn't really a thing like at large until the internet came along and everybody could weeb out on the webs as much as they could. But anyway, that's besides the point. The power of theme. I was getting to that again. The theme of the Ninja Warrior. That is really not that well explored in Shadow Warrior, because you're not really a ninja warrior. You do have shurikens. You can absolutely throw shurikens, and you have a kick-ass katana sword that is not really used all that much because it's your main weapon. You can switch it out with your fists and it does serve the same damage. I actually prefer the fist to swat bugs instead of the sword. Seem to be a bit more effective, but they do have animations, like with the death of the enemies. They have superb animations, and enemies will they will die in very colorful and creative ways. Some of them, when they see that they're being assaulted with sticky bombs that stick to them, they will just blow off their own heads because they say, okay, I'm gonna die, Lo Wang's gonna murderize me, so may as well go out on my terms, and poof. It has, if you will, its own characteristics. I mean, the enemies can come back as ghosts, some of them, I mean. A couple of them can become invisible and can shoot you with fire. Others are sort of gorilla-like things. Some of them just blow up, like the ones we talked about in Serious Sam a while ago. And they'll do things like crouch and crawl and duck. They don't just stand there. Well, I actually think the pig cubs from Duke Nukem also ducked. But they don't just stand there for the most part. Well, they do stand there and they blow up because that's their purpose. But they seem like they're not entirely just completely cannon fodder. So that's why you have to shoot them with the nuke, because you have a nuke as a weapon for your rocket launcher as an alternate fire mode. This is something that I don't remember Duke Nukem 3D having, but Shadow Warrior does. Alternate fire modes. You don't have a mighty foot that you can engage. You instead have your fists, which alternate to sword. You have an Uzi that alternates to two Uzis if you find another one. You will waste more ammo, but you will shoot enemies faster. And then we get to stuff that's a bit more involved. You have the riot gun. The riot gun has two firing modes. You have to switch between them. It's not a primary attack, alternate attack type of affair like you would see in something like Unreal or Unreal Tournament. Primary fire just makes it shoot a bit like a shotgun, then secondary fire would make it shoot like that. Actually, that shotgun from Daikatana that shot like 5 or 6 shots at the same time, and it was kind of worthless in most situations. Well, here you get to choose how you shoot. If the room is filled with baddies and they're in close range, well, press 3 again, click, and just move your mouse all over the screen. Now, most of my experience of the game comes from the shareware version, so I can't actually say that I beat the game, that I finished off Zilla and became the true Shadow Warrior. I did, however, play that shareware version a lot, and it did have its own neat little things that made it really stand out. For example, there was a bit of a focus on jumping over lava, jumping into things, jumping over other things, killing rabbits if you wanted to, and some more jumping. I was not really a fan of the jumping, can't say that I was, but it was a trend in first-person shooters that continued for quite some time, that of at one point becoming a bit platformerish in nature. It was something to add difficulty, something to add stuff for you to do other than just shoot things, which is something that Doom didn't do because there was no jumping in Doom, you just moved to a level. And, well, the jumping, although sometimes it would be a bit annoying because, well, early 3D didn't really work that well. I mean, if you look up and down in the build engine which Shadow Warrior uses, you will still see a very, very skewed perspective because it's still kind of a 2D game. There was a famous feature of it that it couldn't really do overlapping geometry, so you would often encounter situations where overlapping spaces would merge and create geometry that is impossible, which would make for some really awesome scenes. I don't remember any of them being in what I played of Shadow Warrior, but I do remember them being in Duke Nukem, where you could find a room that had more than 360 degrees of horizontal movement in it. You could basically go in a circle and still have more circle even if you completed a circle. That was one of the beauties of the limitations of the build engine. It made people get creative with building levels, and I can say that Shadow Warrior was kind of creative. There was no way you would confuse this for Duke Nukem. It had different types of levels, different themes. Yeah, some of them were in cities, but you would visit, more theme or Japanese style restaurants and stuff, not simply the same things you would see again and again and again in Duke Nukem. You'd visit underground temples and giant mountain retreats and all sorts of stuff. It did try its best to sell the theme through its levels. And of course, with dialogue of Lo Wang himself, the wisecracking super mega ninja person. Now, here's the thing. Shadow Warrior, when I played it, seemed like a magnificent game because, well, I didn't really have that many first-person shooters back then. But in retrospect, it's nice, but it's not really all that great. It's serviceable, perfectly serviceable, it's enjoyable, but I sort of don't feel like it's a game that's gonna make your day. It's a game that's going to refine your understanding of a first-person shooter. Then again, this comes from having not really played much of the full version. The full version has like 16 levels and possibly a couple of expansions. I mostly played the first one. They were good levels, they were enjoyable, but yeah, don't really feel the need to go back to it again and again and again like I would with something like Duke Nukem 3D or Doom. It seemed like it sort of lacked certain thing. Maybe if it had committed a bit more to its theme, maybe if it had more, samurai ninja things in it, which is kind of what they did with the sequel, the one that came a decade and a half later. They really focused on the sword, on it having abilities and you being accompanied by a demon, and it made for a really good reimagination, a revival of a game. This wasn't a clone anymore. This wasn't just Duke Nukem, but with more interesting weapons. Well, not more interesting, but different weapons and different enemies in a different setting. This was its own game, and that's what was missing. The power of theme was not enough to make Shadow Warrior distinct enough from Duke Nukem 3D to give it its own identity. But its sequel, that had its own identity. You cannot confuse that for Duke Nukem Forever, for example, even though they are both sequels slash reimaginations of ancient classic first-person shooters. And you can't confuse it with Doom either, which would come out sometime later. That is its own thing. I still recommend that you try and play Shadow Warrior, the old one and the new one as well. The old one has some nice components to it, especially the level design. It's very reminiscent of the olden days where you would get lost because you couldn't figure out that there was a switch in a lavatory that you had to throw to open a door that probably shouldn't be linked to a switch in a toilet. But it is fun enough in its own way. And the most important bit, Shadow Warrior Classic, like the original one, is free. It's free on GOG, it's free on Steam, it's been free for years. You can get it and play it to your heart's content with no issues. But if you wanted to look a bit better, maybe run a bit more stable without crashing like this one did on modern systems, you may want to get the Classic Redux, which uses the open source code of the game to actually make it a bit more, modern. That one does come at a price. It's around €8 on GOG. And it's on sale right now on Steam. It's under €3. I didn't buy it because I really didn't have time to play it properly for the show, getting the expanded levels and stuff, but I think it's where to go. Also, Shadow Warrior, the remake, did get a sequel, and people weren't as thrilled about that one. The game was also free on GOG a couple of months ago or weeks ago. Still have not played it. Maybe I will next year. Who knows? We'll see. Next week, our journey continues with something a bit more alien. Goodbye.